Joining me today is a guy that since 1989 has been clipping people in Cleveland. His name's Mark Hall. He actually cuts hair, and I'm really looking forward to talking with him today. Boy, Mark, I'm glad you were able to come today.
Well, I like how you don't ask hard questions.
I don't ask hard questions because I don't even know what any hard questions are.
Right.
You know, a lot of people like the fact that it's just simple discussion, just like we was having coffee.
That's right.
If you're talking with somebody at lunch, they don't say, "Man, he didn't ask me any hard questions." You know, people wouldn't keep coming, would they?
That's true.
If you're with somebody always asking you hard questions.
That's right.
On the Courthouse Square at 30 2nd Street is the law firm of Logan Thompson Law. Since 1965, they have served the legal needs for the good citizens of Cleveland-Bradley County. If you've got a problem, they're no problem. Give them a call.
Have you been in Cleveland since, when did you come to Cleveland?
I come to Cleveland in 1995. So I've been here since I was 30. So
30 years old.
I've been here about 30 years ago.
Well, we're about the same age, right?
We are. I'm 1 year older than you, I believe.
Well, I tell you what, it just seems like yesterday, doesn't it? Where were you from originally?
Mississippi. I grew up on a cattle farm south of Tupelo, Mississippi, a little town called West Point.
I've been there.
That's
where Elvis was born.
Absolutely. We're famous for cotton, catfish, and Elvis, but not in that order.
Elvis, catfish, and cotton.
That's
probably.
right.
Did you ever go down to the casinos? Were they there then?
You know, they just started coming in as I was leaving. So, and they were more around the Delta area, around Greenwood and Greenville. And I've never been there. I've been to the one in Philadelphia, Mississippi, on the Choctaw Indian Reservation.
Well, that's a good place to go, isn't it?
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
I've been to, let's see, from here, it takes about 7.5 hours or 70 hours to get to Tunica, and to Philadelphia, it's probably 5.5 hours if you move on pretty good.
Mm-hmm. You'll gain an hour, but I think it would take about 5, maybe 6 hours to get there.
I like going to Philadelphia better than Tunica. It's more like a real casino.
It's like a real casino. It's out in the middle of nowhere, but it's a lot of fun.
It's just like a absolute regular Las Vegas casino. How come you come to Cleveland?
Well, my parents moved up here. The little area that I was from was really drying up and was very limited, mostly agricultural area there. And my dad, he transferred with his job.
Which was what?
Southern Ionics. It's a chemical company. And I soon followed. And so I arrived here in 1995. And I just turned 30. And it was in East Tennessee. And Cleveland's always been a great fit for me.
Were you in the Marines?
I was.
You have the presence of being in the Marines.
Right. I'm told that a lot.
What made you want to go to the Marines?
You know, when you and I was growing up, Dee, you know, opportunity was very limited. And at that time, they had bombed the barracks in Beirut. And I think every warm-blooded American young man wanted to enlist in the Marine Corps at that time. So, you know, my mother, she, you know, being a mother from the South, she just almost forbid me going into the Marine Corps, you know, and I wanted her blessings. So she was a little hesitant to do that because she just knew that I was going to die, you know, in the Marine Corps. And but she promised me, or she said that I could have her blessings if I promised to do 2 things, and that's to never smoke and never get a tattoo.
I bet you did both.
They are. At some time I did, yeah. But I've done a lot of other things. But those two things that I tried to stay away from.
You never got a tattoo?
I never got a tattoo. Never got a tattoo. And I don't know how I got out of the Marine Corps without a tattoo, because my whole platoon, everybody had a tattoo.
Remember that Popeye had the anchor?
Absolutely, the anchor. And when I was in, it seemed like the bulldog or like a dragon, breathing fire or something. That was sort of trendy. But I'm not real sure what's sort of trendy now. But back in the '80s, that was the thing.
What was the decision between Navy, Air Force, Marines, Army? How did you arrive at the hardest one?
Well, it was, my brother was a Marine, and I think there was a little sibling rivalry there, and I certainly couldn't let my older brother outdo me. So I followed in his footsteps, and the Marine Corps was really a good fit for me. It was. I wanted to do something sort of out of the norm, and something that really made me stretch and made me grow as a person, and I needed a wake-up call at that time. I was young and just drifting through life. So the Marine Corps, they sort of, got me in the right direction.
Was that instead of college?
It was.
So you were, what, 19 or something?
I was 19. Mm-hmm.
Was it really hard?
It was, I went there in pretty good shape. I was raised on a cattle farm, so I felt like I was in pretty good shape, and I was an athlete in high school. And but it was no matter how prepared you are, it's still tough. It's being away from home. It's some very long days, and the training is.
Was it the boot camp that was hard?
Parris Island was tough. It's you just have to sort of keep in your mind that millions of other Marines have passed through here, and if they can do it, you can certainly do it. And you just simply don't quit and continue to stay motivated and work hard, and eventually you get out.
Did some people not make it through boot camp?
I think we started with 76 and we ended with about 52.
Boy, it'd be hard to be. Wouldn't you hate to be the one that just gave up?
I would hate to be, and not only that, to go through life wondering what would have happened if you hadn't given up.
Well, I mean, can you imagine saying, son, everybody wants to talk about to their kids and say, son, I quit. Why'd you quit? Well, it was just too hard. I mean, that would be, of course, some people may have some real medical issues, right?
Right.
But do you think the mind can go more after the body says, I'm not going?
Absolutely. And I think the body can go after the mind says it can't go any further. I think if you're very strong-willed, I think if you're determined, and I think that if you know that the brain is there really to sort of protect the body, you realize you can push it past that.
That's what they say, is that the brain is telling you that your legs or your arms are hurting to protect you from overdoing it. But should we listen to that, or is going past that danger zone, or is it?
I think a combination of both. I think you can go a little further than you think you can. I think that it's human nature to be somewhat lazy by nature
and out of breath.
Absolutely.
But if you're out of breath, can you still go further than you thought?
I would think so. Absolutely. I have, and I know you have as a cycler. You have. So you just continue to push, and it seems like, Dee, once you get past a certain point, then it starts to ease up. It starts to flow a little better. And I'm not real sure. It's almost like, you feel like it's building up and there's like a wall, and then after that, it just sort of releases and you sort of flows and it becomes easier.
Well, I've noticed that cycling, you can't go no more. You're going to give up. Well, I'll give it 12 more. I always say 12 more of something.
Right,
you can get 12 more of
Sure.
anything.
That's right.
And then I'll get this little chill, like a chill over me, and I know when that chill comes, that it's going to ease up. I think that's the second breath, or the, what do they call that? Second wind.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Or either just sort of have an object in the distance that you can just say, hey, I'm running to this area to this point, and then I'm going to slow down. And then once you get to that point, you think, hey, I can go on even further. So it's little ways to sort of trick the brain, trick the mind to be able to go a little further than what you think you actually can.
You know Tom Cry.
Yeah, I know him well.
So
absolutely.
I had this same discussion with him because he was a drill sergeant.
Yes.
And he said that it's scientifically proven that the body can go 20% more after the mind says it can't.
I definitely believe that.
And that's a lot.
That's huge, and I've got a tremendous amount of respect for Tom Cry, and he's the real deal.
He
He's the
wouldn't
real
tell
deal.
you if it wasn't.
Absolutely, he would not.
He wouldn't even tell you if it. I mean, he could downright hurt your feelings by, you know.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm still intimidated by the man.
So, how long were you in boot camp?
13 weeks at Paris Island.
So was it like no sleep, or how? I mean, it was like 4 hours a night sleep and back up and.
It's a combination of different things. You know, you do seem to be sleep deprived the whole time. But I think maybe a little more sometime than 4 hours, maybe 5 or 6 hours a night. And then, you're right back up at it, and you're, if you have guard duty that night while everybody else is sleeping, you even get less sleep. So the next day, you have to be just as fresh as you were if you'd slept 8 hours.
Did you ever, after one of those hard days, did you get in bed and say, "Uh-oh, I can't go to sleep," and lay there for maybe an hour, or was you just out?
Well, you're exhausted, so you're just about out. But if you laid there, your mind would sort of drift a little bit, and you'd sort of think of all the things that's going on and all the things that's happening. But normally at the end of the night, at the end of the day, you was exhausted. You was physically exhausted.
I would like to go through that experience, I think, but I wonder if they had some kind of a boot camp nowadays for adults.
I like that.
Like at 60 years old.
Absolutely.
And really push yourself.
Sure.
I wonder if it would. Do you ever like when you ran for office, did you go back to your Marine times and say, I got to keep pushing?
Absolutely.
Because you won your first election, you weren't even from here.
I wasn't from here.
That you shouldn't have won.
Right, that's right. It was in 2006, and I represented the 7th District, and it was 7,912 constituents. And it was mainly on the other side of Keith Street is the 7th District. And I really didn't know how to campaign and didn't know a whole lot of people. But I just had a handful of cards and just knocked on doors and just respectfully asked them for their vote. And the people of Bradley County and Cleveland were good to me.
Do you think that, now what got you into cutting hair? That's an interesting thing, isn't it?
Right. My mother, I was raised in the hair business. And
Is she a hairdresser?
And my mother was a hairdresser, and as a matter of fact, she was pregnant with me when she was in beauty school. So it was sort of in my DNA. And so when I got out of the Marine Corps, I went to barber school and just started working.
Now, is there a difference between barber school and a beauty school? Is there? I mean, I guess they're two distinct different things.
There used
right?
to be. It used to be two separate, even governing bodies that even govern those. And because the cosmetology side did a lot of chemical work, and in the barber side they did a lot of clipper work and things like that. And instead of styling hair, they mostly cut the style in and that sort of thing, like flat tops and crew cuts and things like that. But now you're starting to see both professions sort of blend in with one another. It's almost, they sort of intertwine now. As a matter of fact, in my shop, I've got 3 cosmetologists that work there, and me and another barber. So we're sort of a melting pot, so to speak, of different professions, but it's all under one umbrella, and you can work all in the same shop.
Do you do fading?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a skill, isn't it?
It is. And when you're new in the hair business, you can sort of visualize what you're trying to accomplish, but you don't know which tool does what, and you don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
And you know what you're going after, you just don't know the path to take. And but eventually, it's like flipping on a light switch. It's just one day. It just, out of all the struggle, it just sort of flows for you, and it sort of all comes together. And you're like, aha, I got it.
They can't fade with just scissors. They have to have that.
They need to,
machine.
absolutely.
I've noticed some hair cutters cannot fade.
That's right.
They just can't do it. They don't.
Right. And now with all the tools and guides and blades and and it's really easier now than it's ever been. When I first was a licensed barber in 1989, I went to work with a lot of older barbers, and their work was so precise and so on point, and I just remember thinking, will my work ever look as good as theirs, And every haircut was right on the money. The outline was beautiful, and I remember thinking, how will I ever get that good, and it just comes in time. There's just no shortcuts.
My son Cole used to go to you till he said you ran for office and then you took a while off and
That's
he
right.
got sidetracked. He's a good kid, isn't he?
He is a great kid. I tell you, I was thinking about that driving over here. He is he's an old soul.
He is an old soul.
But he is solid.
He's the definition of an old soul, and he's always been that way.
And he is, and as long as I've known him, this was the day your wife used to bring him when he was a small kid.
Yeah.
And now he's like driving himself. And but of course, a great head of hair. But I always enjoy the conversations that we have.
He doesn't talk much.
He doesn't talk much, but he is so. He's so analytical.
He got a good sense of humor after you get down in there.
He does, after he opens up a little bit.
Isn't it funny how kids are just totally, they're the way, after about 6 months or a year, they're not going to change much at all.
That's right.
You have kids?
That's right. I do. I've got one son, Zach. He's 31 years old.
Was he about the same way when he was a year old?
He was.
I mean,
He was.
I got a good friend of mine, he's 94.
Wow.
He's got 5 kids, just perfect in every way.
Oh, wow.
And I said, so-and-so, I said, what's the secret when my wife got pregnant? He said, well, I've got 4 kids and I raised them all the same and I've got 3 of the best kids you'd ever ask for. He says, there's nothing you can do. Mm-hmm. I was looking for the magic bullet.
Sure.
And he says, there's nothing you can do. They just are what they are.
Yep. And love them for who they are.
That's what he was saying. Yep. He says they just are who they are.
Right. And that's probably true. Very true.
And I just took that advice and I just let it go. So when did you go? Are you bald or you just wear that haircut?
No, I am bald.
How old were you when you?
I was probably in my early 20s when I started seeing, my hair started weakening a little bit. And of course, I tried to keep it as long as I could. And then eventually I just started shaving my head. And
what age did you start shaving it?
I was probably around 26 or 27.
Well, the women like you.
Well,
I may do that to my hair.
Well, thank you.
My hair is really, but I just can't go to just shaving it. Mm-hmm. Do you use what do you use?
I do use I use not a straight razor, but like a safety razor. And I think maybe the way to do it is probably just a little at a time. Instead of having it like being culture shock, just start whittling it down a little at a time, and then sort of get used to that look, get used to that length. And then before long you'll say, you know what, let's go ahead and take it all off. But it's
I was worried about going bald, and a good friend of mine, Gene Officer, he said,
oh, no, Gene.
He said, oh, don't worry about that, Dee. He said, you've got a real good shaped head to be bald, and I didn't worry about it since.
Right, there you go.
But I just can't bring myself to, some people do it. Some people say, you're ready for a number 2. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
Right, each blade is numbered, and each number represents a different length. And of course, 2 is very short, but it leaves sort of a good shadow. And it's sort of a neat and clean look. And it's where you can sort of barely see the scalp, but you can see a little hair left there too.
I may go, but I just can't find myself to do it. I was talking to this person one day, and they seemed like their hair was coming out, was growing.
Sure.
And I just said, are you doing something to your hair? Mm-hmm. And they said, yeah. And I said, what is it? And he said, I've started taking, what's that stuff? Shoot, I can't think. It wasn't a hair loss thing. Mm-hmm. It was God, what is that stuff? God, what is that stuff, Glenn? I know you don't know, but
What's it do?
it was like for your fingernails.
Hurricane?
No.
Like a vitamin E kind of thing?
No. But anyway, I started taking it, and this is new.
I'm loving it. There you go. Nice.
So I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's working. Keep.
What about hair transplants?
You know, I've seen. I'm not a big fan of them because, in my opinion, hair is fed on blood supply and circulation. And if you don't have the circulation and the blood supply to naturally feed the hair, you're probably not going to have it to feed those, the hair that's been transplanted there.
So it may die. It may die out over time.
I think it slowly starves itself out over a given period of time. And some people swear by it, but I've never seen, sort of like a toupee. You don't recognize a good one. You only recognize the bad one. So.
But you wouldn't go back to you like it this way.
I wouldn't have it any other way. Now that I've got to this point, it was a little hard to get here, but.
Do you ever cut yourself shaving?
Very rarely. Very rare.
You just go like every morning, shave here and shave there. Takes you 2 minutes.
2 minutes. As long as the skin's tight, you're normally not going to cut yourself. So it doesn't take long.
You wear sunscreen?
Yes, sir.
What kind?
Yes, sir. I have like a SPF, like around 15 or something.
Just like a sports thing. Just
a little
put it
sports
on
thing, and even on my ears and
I always do my ears
because that's the first thing that's going to get.
There and here on
Right.
men. They say that most men get skin cancer on the ear right here or right here because of the sun coming in
I
the
believe
window.
that.
So I put sunscreen right here and right here every morning.
Right. Yep. Very wise. Very
And
wise.
sometimes I look a little greasy in the mornings, but that dies out.
Sure. Yep. Very wise. Very wise.
Do you think when you first started, did you cut hair in Mississippi before you came here?
I did. I cut hair about 4 years in Mississippi before I came here.
Did you work for somebody there?
I worked with an older barber named Bert Nix. He just had a little bitty shop, and we were in an area that the population was about 8,000. So you can imagine how small that was. And when I moved to Cleveland, I opened up a shop on North Lee Highway. So there was a little construction trailer there. Just past it was the bowling alley, is North Lee Lanes on the left. It was a little construction trailer just north of town.
Is that a dog grooming place now?
It is. It was
a doggy daycare, maybe.
It's past that. It was now. I think it's next door to a salon now. There was. I think it was a passport photograph and maybe some. I'm not real sure, a knife shop or something like that, but it just past Fish Creek down there on the left.
When you came here, did you just seek out a place and that's where you landed?
Well, it was, I didn't know anybody and didn't nobody know me, so, my customer base was extremely limited. And
how'd you get the first customers?
Well, I just opened up and I would stop at a little store in the morning to get me a little biscuit and something to drink, and I would just hand out cards when I was in there. And they had a few little tables in there, and I would just walk over to some men sitting at the table and say, listen, hey, I've just opened up a new barbershop. I'd love to have your business. And it just started growing.
That's how you won the election.
I think so.
Same way, just asking.
Just respectfully asking, and whether you're in the hair business or whether you're in politics, it's just the people business,
I used to get my hair cut by Raymond Woods. Did you ever know him?
I didn't know Raymond.
Well, Raymond was he gave me this radio cabinet. He was an extremely unique person, one of the smartest people I've ever met. And I like telling this story, is the reason I'm telling it, but he would cut my hair every 3 weeks, 4 o'clock on Saturdays, and it was like a 50 minutes long. And it was just you and him, and it was $55, and it was expensive. But he gave you. He was a counselor too.
Yes.
So you'd get your counseling and a haircut.
I love it. Absolutely, that's good stuff.
I
And it
mean,
was a bargain if you look
it
at
was
it
a
that
bargain.
way. It was a bargain.
And he made it. He worked out of his house, and you never saw another customer because you would get there on the hour, and he was very punctual. I mean, you had to be there at that minute, and you left at 10 minutes on the hour, so you didn't pass another customer.
Right.
That was important to him.
Absolutely.
Because it was your hour.
That's right. It was your time.
And I asked him. I said, Raymond. I said, what did you have to do to start cutting hair? He said, well, I went to MTSU. I got a major in economics, a minor in philosophy, and I went to Florida to started teaching school. And I said, and then he said, he said, I was driving back to Cleveland because it wasn't going good there for me. And he said, I decided on the way back how I wanted to live my life. And then I decided what career fit that rather than thinking of a career and making your life fit it, which was genius.
That was absolutely, it's brilliant.
And he said, I came up with cutting hair. And I said, boy, I didn't know you had to go to all of that to cut hair. He said, no, that's what I had to do. That was my journey.
Right, right.
So, because I asked him, what did he have to do? He
Right.
had to go through all
Sure.
that stuff.
Sure. It's
So
interesting.
if you said, how did you start cutting hair? You'd say, well, I had to go to the military, because that
That's
would
right.
be your journey.
That's right. That's right.
Isn't that smart?
He was brilliant.
He was brilliant.
He was brilliant.
He died of colon cancer.
Oh, wow.
One of the smartest people I ever knew. And he ended up with I remember talking to him one day. I said, Raymond, I sure am burnt out. And he said, you need to charge more. And I said, I can't charge more. He said, don't tell me that. I just charged you $55 for a $5 haircut.
Oh, he was a barber, all
He
right.
was a barber.
He was true. He was a barber through and through, man.
So I thought, well, he's right.
Well, I hated that I didn't get to meet him because I could have learned a
You'd
lot
have
from
loved
him.
him.
I would have loved him, absolutely.
I got a picture out there. I'll show you when we leave.
Absolutely.
But so after when you started cutting hair, did you or in Cleveland, did you fall in love with the people in Cleveland?
Instantly, I did, and because I think the reason I fell in love with them is because they just incorporated me in their life, and I incorporated them in mine. It was the most amazing thing that I could. I look back now, and I averaged just a little over 2 haircuts a day for 5 months. And, I just said, wow, I don't know, because the competition was, I said, well, maybe, coming from a smaller place, maybe I wasn't as good as I thought I was, but I came and I just stuck it out and I continued to work and very discouraged from time to time and because, business was slow and I was open 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And, but I remember talking to my brother on the phone, and he said, it was a common question, how many customers did you have today? And I said, well, today I had 4. And he said, well, I bet you're the only barber in town that picked up 4 new customers. And I thought, hey, that's a great way to look at it. And but it was a good fit for me. And I just fell in love with the people of Cleveland and Bradley County. And
Well, you're such a staple here. I didn't know if you was raised here or been here all your life.
yeah, I just hit the ground running, and just incorporated myself into the daily activities of things going on here in Bradley County, and met a lot of people, and I was fortunate to serve 12 years on the county commission and 4 years in the House, and so it's really been a good fit.
Boy.
It has been a good fit.
And you've got a great location there on Henderson. I go to the church across the street.
Oh, do you? Okay, yeah.
It looks like it's 2 stories, is it not?
I initially designed it for 2 stories, but the codes wanted me to put in a sprinkler system. So Michael Holden built that for me, and
He's a great guy.
and he's great.
He's
He is,
great.
He is solid, and I designed it after a shotgun style house, because you see a lot of those kind of in Mississippi,
Yeah.
and after a train depot.
It looks like an old West type.
And I loved them both.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to Hilton Head with my parents and went over to a little IHOP and had a little notepad. And so I started designing me a little barbershop. I'd had that little lot there for a while and hadn't done nothing with it. But so I just said, I'm going to build me a little barbershop there. It's not but 840 square feet. And it's really worked out well for me.
840 square feet. Well, you got 2 bathrooms, I guess.
It's 2 bathrooms. Well, 1.5. It's got a shower in it, and then one for the customers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a 3-chair shop, and but it's all on a slab, epoxy floor, very high traffic, low maintenance kind of thing. But it's worked out well.
So how did you decide? How did you determine? Hey, I'm going to run. Because let's see. That would have been, how long would you have been in Cleveland before you ran for county commissioner?
I was here about 10 years. And I was on, this is when my shop was on Keith Street, right across from Hardee's and the Tractor Supply there, in that rustic looking building. I was there for 17 years, by the way.
Oh, that's the old Rockin' W's Western store.
Yep.
John Wilkins' place.
Yep. So I was there, and there was a lot of issues that were sort of coming up, and that was sort of controversy, and lots of issues with the school board, and then you had the city and county, both governing agency bodies were sort of bickering amongst themselves. So I just said, you know what? Hey, maybe I can make a difference. Maybe I can sort of bring people together, and maybe I can, find some common ground. And so I represented a county district inside the boundaries of the city. So it was sort of a real, sort of a tough line to walk, but I managed to do it, and I met a lot of great people, and hopefully made some good things happen.
So 12 years, that's a long time.
Yeah,
that was like, what, three different elections?
Terms. 3 terms.
Did you have to run all 3 times?
All 3 times.
Did you run as hard the second and third time as you did the first?
Harder, because I was running against Bill Winters and Lindsey Hathcock and Michael Plumlee and Floyd Clevenger.
Lord. All those are big, heavy hitters.
Bill Burnell, listen.
Heavy hitters.
It was, they knew how to campaign, and they were great people, and they had a great name and a great reputation, and it was just by the grace of God that I won those elections.
Were you thinking, I'm just going to run this a clean race and be, it's never good to blast the other side.
No, I've never done that, and especially in the Senate, in my Senate race, I refused to, because I had so many good people that endorsed me, and their name, I promised them that I would never embarrass them. I made 2 promises when in all of it, since I was in politics, and that was I was going to work hard and never embarrass you, and so I had so many endorsements that there's no way I'm going negative, just no way.
That's just not your nature.
It's not my nature. I don't like it. I think because eventually the election's over with, and you have to go to school together, and you have to go to church together, and you've got all of these.
Yeah.
So I refused. It's human nature to want to defend yourself when you know that some allegations are not true. But for the most part, I've got so much respect for those that endorse me. I just wasn't going to do that.
Well, it worked for you.
It works. It works.
When you was on the county commission, I was on the city planning commission for a long time. And looking back, there was a few times I thought, I probably should have voted that other way. I guess everybody has that, right?
Absolutely.
And I don't know if I had to do it again, maybe I'd have voted the same way, but it's harder voting on that stuff than people realize when they're looking from the outside. There's a lot of nuances that don't come out.
That's right. Well, you got some friends that you don't want to disappoint, but you've obligated to do the right thing. And that's the hardest part. And Bill Leopard used to say 8 votes, could move that courthouse. So you know that even if you did make a mistake, there was 7 other people that had to make the same mistake that you did in order for it to take place.
Yeah.
So if there's ever any saving grace, that's probably it. But there's been many a times you drive away from the courthouse and that you think, maybe I should have taken a second look, or maybe I should have been a little.
Or did I vote for that because I was under pressure?
Right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And you don't know. You just do the best you can, and that's what you're supposed to do.
That's right. That's right.
So did you quit the county commission and say, hey, I'm going to run for Senate?
I did. I was on the commission at the time, and so I was in this inner struggle. I felt like I was just now getting to where I can be really effective. On the commission, and then Kevin Brooks. He was coming home from Nashville. He had served 12 years in Nashville and did an amazing job, and it was just. And so there was a vacancy there, and I knew it was easier to run for a vacant seat than it is, against an incumbent. So, so that was the direction and I just kept to the same
game plan,
boots on the ground, keeping it simple, networking, and just getting your name out there. And
how big is this? How big area is the Senate to run?
Well, Bradley County is 338 square miles, but in the Senate is most of Bradley County. Well, no, I take that back. It's Bradley County, it's Meigs, Ray, and McMinn.
So you had a larger area.
I had 4 counties to cover because they redistricted that area, and they brought in Meigs and Ray. So. And I was in Nashville. I was in the House at the time, and so when I got home, it was a short window to sort of campaign. It was like a mad sprint to the finish line. So when session was over in Nashville, and I just come home and hit the ground running. And so, but the Senate race, it was 4 different counties.
So, so you were already in it before you ran.
I was in the House. I was a representative.
But you had run for that.
Yes.
But you had run for that just like you'd ran for.
That's
just
right.
like you handed out cards to get haircuts.
That's right.
Same thing, just a bigger area.
Just bigger, and there was some, I did a lot of social media. I did a lot of mail outs, did some billboards, things like that.
If you hadn't have done the mail outs or the billboards, would it have all been different, you think? Or do you know what works?
I don't know. I think all of them is sort of a spoke in the wheel, and I think you sort of need them all. I think that what the voter wants to see you. I think the voter wants to be able to ask you questions, and you need to be somewhat vulnerable to do that. But I think when you knock on someone's door and you humbly ask and respectfully ask for their vote, I think it's sort of hard for them not to vote for you if they see you working, and they may not say it at the time, but they close the door and I think, you know what, this guy's working. This guy's trying to get it done.
It's hard not to vote for somebody that asks you for your vote.
That's right.
It's very hard, no matter what they do.
And they may not commit at the time, but once they get in that voting booth and they're like,
he came over to the house.
And
but running for Senate, you can't go to all those houses, can you?
That you cannot.
So how do you combat that?
Well, the constituents were about 250,000. So, and I knew that Bradley County made up about 60% of the vote. So, and that was my base. So you sort of wanted to.
So you're working on them and hoping for them,
right.
I guess.
Yeah, and a combination of both.
Yeah.
You want a team in each county that can sort of pull you across the finish line.
Yeah.
And so you got to, you realize very quickly you can't do it by yourself, and it takes a team of people. And like on Saturdays, I would hit 5 and 6 events in one day. I'd start off at a pancake breakfast and end up with a rodeo. And
was it mostly the same people there?
It was a lot of the same. But I would stumble home. I'd be exhausted after about an 18-hour day. But and I campaigned for 277 days.
Every day?
Every day except for Sunday.
Golly.
Every day except for Sunday. And then your team would meet, and you would come up with a game plan.
And you can't pay the team, right?
No, you certainly can't pay them what they're worth. They have to be.
So they are really volunteers.
They're volunteer, and they're experts in their own field. You have an IT guy, you've got a social media guy, You got a guy that prints. You got a guy that he's an expert in mail-outs.
And you had to put this team together.
And put them together.
You couldn't do it by yourself.
You couldn't do it, but no.
You couldn't win nothing.
It'd be impossible. It's very taxing. With a good team, you're exhausted. But without a good team around you, it'd be hard to put yourself in the best chance of success.
Do you think your military background helped you during that time at all?
You know, I really do. You know, because the first thing they teach you at Paris Island is that I will never surrender while I still have the means to resist. And that was sort of my battle cry. Every day I got up and I just kept fighting. If I got a good response, got a negative response, whatever it was, I just continue to campaign.
Keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward. And I'd be over in Ray County at 2 a.m. putting up signs on the side of the road. And, you know, it was some long days. It was some long days. But that's what it takes.
Do you think that as we get our age, we look back and all of those things we did built on the other thing?
Sure.
I mean, you know, you were in...
Absolutely.
You were cutting hair, you're being friendly, you're going to the military, you're learning that, you're trying to get business for that. So it all just a big stack of talents, but no specific talent. It's just that this stack can do this.
Right, absolutely. You know, you look back on your life and you think, you know, how God sort of orchestrated it all, how he sort of put it all together. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, you know? And even though you don't know it at the time, some of the things that you learn now that is going to help you, even if it's not even affiliated with what you're pursuing down the road.
There was a philosopher, I forget what his name was. He said, somebody, and he said, while I was in my life, it looked and felt like chaos, but at the end, it looked like a well-written book.
Very well put. Very well put.
I may have butchered that, but that was the meaning.
Right.
And that's what we're saying here.
Sure. You all of the disappointments and the stumbling, it's sort of, you know, it's sort of forgotten about, and then you just have the finished product. And but yeah, I think about that a lot.
Do you you ran for one and lost? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. I ran for the Senate. You know, I served 2 years in the House of Representatives. Yeah. I represented the 24th district, which is most of Bradley County, and then Dan Howell has sort of the fringe area. And then I stretched for the Senate and come up short. And so
when was that election?
It was in 22.
So who won?
Adam Lowe.
Oh, Adam Lowe, yeah. And he's from Meigs County, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's from McMinn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He did serve on the commission
yeah.
here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Boy, I bet losing is another, to me, that would be another experience.
Well, it's very disappointing, but it was important to me that the people that were there and the people that supported me, it's important that I always handle it the right way. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to leave my crew and my team to let them know that, hey, there's still better days ahead, mm-hmm. and we're going to come back from this, and we'll be better because of it.
The Fonz is back.
The Fonz is back, man. The Fonz is back.
Remember that show?
Yeah, I love it, man.
The Fonz is back.
Oh, yeah.
Always, he'd walk in with those dingo boots. The Fonz is back.
Hey, man, he was cool, wasn't he?
He was cool. He's still alive.
Oh, was he really?
Yeah, he's still alive.
There's just a couple of cool people growing up, and the Fonz and Elvis and Evel Knievel. That was
Evel Knievel. Yeah,
all three of them was just cool, you know.
I've got a picture of Happy Days. Mm-hmm. Let me get that real quick. I'm gonna show it to you. I got a signed autograph, man. Is that right here? Go. Henry Winkler.
Oh yeah. Oh, where did you meet him?
I didn't. I had a guy on here, Ricky Crook.
Oh yeah.
And Ricky knew it.
Oh man,
he's friends with him, and that's Ricky Crook. He's a great guy.
Man, the Fonz. Yep.
The Fonz.
They didn't come any cooler, man.
They didn't come any cooler
than the Fonz.
You know, that's the old. They get that phrase. What's that phrase? You jump the shark. Mm-hmm. You heard that before?
I haven't.
Yeah, there's a phrase that goes, you jump the shark. Mm-hmm. And that was because Happy Days was doing real good, but the episode that they had him jumping the shark on the water skis.
Oh, yeah.
Was just over the top,
Mm-hmm.
a flop, and it basically ended the show.
Is that right?
So their old saying is, you jumped the shark. You
Wow.
took it too far.
Yeah, you pushed the envelope a little too far.
Because, he rode a motorcycle. He wasn't a water skier.
It was like the Dallas, who shot JR kind of thing.
Right, right.
You had to end somewhere.
Yeah.
So you jumped the shark. I like it.
You can't think of all of this like that, as far as this is it. You have to convince yourself you're going to live to be 110.
That's right.
And you're going to need the money.
That's right.
Because you got somebody pregnant.
That's right.
I mean, you have
Yep.
to convince yourself.
You have-
Otherwise, we'll just crawl in a hole.
That's right. You give up. You're not as competitive, and you just start to sort of slide.
Boy, that scares me. Does it scare you?
A whole lot. A whole lot.
It doesn't scare me about my strength. It scares me about my willingness to, I don't even know what I'm wanting to say, but my willingness to have passion.
I'm next year I'll be 60 years old, and you realize the days you've lived outnumber the days you got ahead of you.
In theory.
In theory, yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you certainly want to, you want the last quarter to be better than than the first part, but yeah, you're always afraid you're sliding. You're always afraid you're going to lose a step, and not as competitive and not as efficient and effective as you once were.
I asked Jim Sharp. Do you ever know Jim Sharp?
Yes, sir.
So I asked him one time when I turned 50. I said, Jim, can you still invest and develop subdivisions and all of that stuff when you're 50? Mm-hmm. And he said, Dee, when you're 50, you can do whatever you want to. You just can't mess up.
That's that is
In other
true.
words, you're not going to have time to overcome if you mess up.
Right. The recovery time is shortened.
And
Yeah.
what you get into is, well, like if something that is a long-term plan, you got to start doing away with them because,
Yep.
a 30-year mortgage, you're going to get a 30-year mortgage right now. I guess you could, but
Right.
but it's those type of things. You
Sure.
say, I'll build these apartments in 30 years, they'll be paid for.
Right.
30 years, you won't care.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
the things you do have to have a shorter time span,
Yep.
I guess.
And that was some wise advice he gave.
It really
Hey.
was. It was good and more and realistic too.
Sure.
You just can't mess up
Sure.
because you're not going to have time to.
To recover.
Yeah. Like some people would go bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was starting in the business, they said, "Oh, if you go bankrupt, you got time to recover." Well, they wouldn't tell me that today because
Right.
I don't.
Right.
I think of some people that when I was in my mid-20s that sort of mentored me, and I look back, and they were basically my age at the time, and they're all still living.
Right.
So we can't think this thing is over.
That's right. And you thought they were ancient at the time.
I thought they were old,
Right.
but and they're still living.
Right.
So let's go for it, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it.
But what's the point in going for it?
Well, at the end of you want the tank to be empty.
You don't want nothing left.
You want nothing left, and you don't want to drive. You don't want to die with a dream left in you. So whatever you've got planned, whatever you want, today is the day. And when you get at the end of your life, you want to be able to say, "Hey, listen, I did everything that I wanted to do, and hopefully I changed some people's lives and I benefited some people and lived every dream that I possibly had." So,
Well, I tell you what, it's hard. But right now you think, well, what do I want to do?
well, you see so many. You see so many people in their 40s that have just sort of given up.
I can't stand to see that.
That amazes me.
It just, and I see people my age just like you think they're almost celebrating that they're old.
Right.
I'm thinking, man, don't do that. You're
No.
making it bad for our age.
That's right.
You know what?
That's right. Yeah, I love inspiration stories where, you see a man that's in his 70s, mid-70s, is still working out, still training. He feels good, he looks good, and he's living a great life.
I ride bicycles with this group, and I'm not as good as them, and I don't have the desire. However, Tim Waldrop rides with me.
Oh, yeah, I know Tim, yeah.
And it's just something to see how he can ride with those 20-year-olds.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
With his helmet on.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't see his face. You'd think he's a 22-year-old guy.
Absolutely. Pretty impressive.
Oh, it's
impressive.
unbelievable. And that's the inspiration for me.
Yeah. That's unbelievable. And I don't know how, Tim's probably a little older than I am.
He won't tell anybody, but he's approaching 68 or so, I think, 69, which is unbelievable.
Yep.
It just doesn't make sense.
Well, he's been riding as long as I've known him, and he hadn't quit.
He eats good too.
He has to.
He eats good, and and he wants to.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
What do you think is are you going to keep cutting hair, or is that your day job, I guess?
Mm-hmm. And, right now I cut a couple of days a week on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Dee, I've always worked so much, and I've always struggled finding the balance between work and play. And I've worked a lot, but I never had a reason not to. So for probably 2 decades, maybe 25 years, I worked 12 hours a day.
Like what time? 9 to 8?
8 to 8, Monday through Friday, and from 8 to 6 on Saturday. And then I would be.
And you're not kidding. You're not exaggerating.
No.
You worked it.
No. And my only regret of all of that is that I was a single father at the time, so I missed out on a lot of my son's life. And he is very successful. He's a traveling nurse now. But I look back and I should have spent more time with him. But as far as working, I always felt like I had to. You're
just running scared.
You was running scared because it's a merit-based business, and you get paid on what you do, and you feel like that. Then when you sort of reach a level of success, you have to keep paddling.
Yeah.
You have to keep pumping the well, and people are dependent upon you, and they sort of. And at that time, I didn't take appointments. You could just walk in off the street, and so
you could have them back. That's a little nerve-wracking too. And they're waiting.
That's right. And most days, you wouldn't stop and eat lunch. You just work straight through for 12 hours, and I did that for over 20 years. So now
your feet get tired.
I do. Now my back hurts a little more than it used to, and when I have those long days, it takes me longer to recover. But I still love it. And if you love people, you love the hair business, and it's a lot like visiting. And you build so many great relationships and so many friendships, and that's how I met Eddie Cartwright and Gene Officer. I mean, you meet all these. They're just such good people, and it's been a good fit. But you do get to a point to where you want to find the balance between work and play, and so I still work a lot, but I don't. But I've changed it up a little bit now that I've sort of gravitated more back to the shop and gotten out of politics. But I anticipate running again for some office, and so that'll sort of, pull me away again. But now I'm sort of at a good place to where I can.
You will run again, and you will win.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, I guarantee that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate.
Because you want to.
I want to. I'm very driven.
Do you think that that our age group came out? I've always wondered this. Mm-hmm. When we were coming up, we were. When I say we were running scared, we were.
We were absolutely.
Because I don't know. It's just it was all about business. And,
yes.
And you remember that show? That guy that's got the Parkinson's disease now.
Oh.
And it was all about business: the button-down collar, the sport coat, the tie, the stock market, banking. It was that was. And everybody was trying to get the 3,500 square foot house with the bonus room, and on the
Right.
big lot with the swimming pool.
That's right.
All of those things just drove us. And I don't think my kids had that same, I want to call it fear, because
Right.
bankruptcy. We didn't want to go bankrupt. That would have just been terrible.
If you were bankrupt then, I don't know how it is now, but it'd be a stain on you. It'd be an embarrassment. It'd be an embarrassment to your family, and your name meant something.
Oh,
And
yeah.
when you shook a man, first of all, men had forearms like Popeye then, you know, and their hand, you could
Yeah.
tell they worked. And when you shook their hand and you made eye contact with them, and you didn't need a contract. Your word was your bond. It
No
meant
matter
every,
what.
It didn't matter. And if that ever changed, you'd better get in touch with them and let them know. And have a good reason
you
why.
even had to live up to what they thought you said.
Absolutely.
Have you ever done that?
Many a times.
Good grief.
Many a times.
So why are you
Absolutely.
doing that? No. Why you, well, that's what they think I said.
That's right. And
Which, looking back, was kind of dumb, but still.
well, your name meant something, and you knew you had years to go in the business, and
Oh, God.
and normally your reputation sort of precedes you, so you want to be very transparent, very truthful, and you want to mean what you say and say what you mean, and I think people respect that. Now, even though they've gotten away from it now, it's so rare. It really sticks out when you see it. You know.
Oh, it is. It's like a dinosaur or something.
Yeah.
You know, in my business, it was, now you can't even trust the suppliers.
Right. You can't even trust a contract.
No.
Even if it's written on a contract, it's
They'll get the lawyer and say, no, when he said blue, he meant red.
He meant purple,
They'll argue
yeah.
that for 3 weeks.
absolutely, and it'll cost you money to just to defend yourself.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is.
But now, this generation coming up doesn't want all those expensive things that we were taught
Right.
we needed to be successful.
That's right.
I didn't even want them, but Raymond used to say they bought the whole package. In other words, they fell for the whole
Right.
hoax of this means success.
Yes.
When those things don't mean success.
No, when you and I grew up, everybody wanted a 3,500 square foot home and 3 acres.
3 acres.
And when you really had arrived, you'd had a swimming pool in the back.
Right.
That's when you knew
right.
that was
and
like.
you were looking for a condo in Florida.
And looking for. That's exactly right.
Nowadays, which I'm not sure is not smarter, they want a small house and want to go out of town and stay at a bed and breakfast. You know, half the price of a regular motel room, or
Right.
stay at a hostel, or
Right.
take some really good pictures, or go on a nice hike.
That's right.
And they're smarter than we are, because we really fell for that
Absolutely.
hoax. If not, you wouldn't have been working 12 hours a day.
Exactly. And think about the time that we spent our lives chasing something that was just slightly out of reach. And once you had, sort of like dangling the carrot, and once you had reached that level, you had to stretch even further and just keep pushing a little further. Now, speaking of the balance between, my house now, I lived in a tiny house before tiny houses were cool. My house is 790 square feet. I live on 20th Street there. And it's
Wasn't that a great place to live?
it used to be a garage, a double car
Yeah.
garage, if that tells you anything. And I got Michael Holden just to gut it for me, make a 1-bedroom, 1-bath. And he was even trying to talk me out of it. He thought I'd lost my mind. And then I went to the shop, and I told my staff what I was doing, and they were like, "Mark, please don't embarrass us," And I'm like, "Hey, listen, I lived in a Holiday Inn Express when I was in Nashville. Hey, listen, this is huge compared to what I'm." And I had everything I wanted. I just didn't want a whole lot,
I built some apartments in Charleston. They're 433 square feet, and there's not any of them vacant. And I'm
Right.
getting probably 30%. I guess I'm getting the highest rent per square foot of anything in Cleveland,
Absolutely.
because it's, I'm $1,100 a month. Do the math,
That's right.
and they're happy.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And
I
you
don't-
realize that you spent so much time,
Paying for a concrete block.
and when you could have been just as happy And
Ignorance, wasn't
yeah, it was just not knowing, you know. And now I like the feeling. You
How
know?
did you when you stopped cutting hair? You stopped cutting so you could run for office, right? So was that the 277 days?
Yes, I started in November when I announced the run for the Senate, and so I just started.
So you just said I can't cut hair
Right.
anymore.
Well, thankfully I had the right people in place that I said that, I just met with them and said, listen, this is my dream, and this is, and I've got to pursue this. And on election night, I need to know that I did everything in my power to win. There needs to be nothing left in the tank on election night. So they said, hey, we got the shop. Hey, we got it covered from here. You do whatever you need to do. And I was fortunate to have a great crew that
I guess your
supported me.
customers kind of got blended from them too.
They did.
So
They did, and they got sort of, they acclimated to them, and it sort of boosted their business. And I mean, they were all successful to begin with, but that really sort of boosted their business too. And so it was really a win-win for everybody.
if you had have just retired, you'd have gone crazy. You
Yeah.
had to feel like you was working on something else.
That's right. I'll never be able to retire. I'm the happiest when I'm the most productive, and I just
Not just busy, but productive.
productive. I like to see the needle move in a positive direction, and if I'm not doing that for some reason, I just kind of get a little squirrely. I feel like I need to be doing something.
What do you do now that you're just working 3 days a week?
Well, I work around the house and the shop, and I'm still at the shop probably 2 or 3 times a day just to make sure everything runs smooth. And then I take appointments on Saturdays, So I'm still trying to find that balance. But I work Wednesdays and Thursdays, and probably half a day on Monday, and so that keeps me busy. It keeps me busy.
So you're slowly getting back into the 12 hours a day, right?
It is. Yeah, I didn't choose to do that, but it sort of just pours you back in. And you want to try to be as accommodating as you possibly can to so many different people.
Yeah.
And their schedules are everybody has a different schedule.
And you'd get this. Well, you cut their hair. Why can't you cut mine?
That's right.
You quit using me, but you're not.
That's right. And so you really want to, just to avoid that, you want to try to accommodate as many people as you can. And
That's a whole another level of issues.
That's that could be a chore sometimes.
What do you think you might? I guess you don't know what you might run for, but I'm guessing that you're.
Yeah, Dee. I think there's a lot left in the tank, and I feel like that I'm sort of watching the political landscape right now, just watching how it unfolds. Yeah. And I'll know when it comes. I've got my mind on a few things, but I just want to just keep an open mind and just watch it unfold, and then I'll know and meet with my team and see where we go from here.
Have you ever noticed all of those? We hear about running for president. There's 4 people or something. But my understanding is that there's a huge list, and we just don't hear about the others.
Sure.
They probably don't even get 1%.
Absolutely.
But it would be interesting to know how many are actually running, and what's their motive.
Right. What's
if
the
they know
motivation
they can't
behind
win,
Sure.
they're not. I don't even know who they are. What's the point?
Well, it takes money to get your message out, and if your campaign funds are limited, then your campaigning's limited.
Wonder how many signatures you have to run for president. That'd be interesting. Just say, I ran for president one time.
That's right. That would be interesting. I
bet it's 1,000. I bet it's not that much.
Yeah. It's 25 to run for Senate, so it couldn't be.
Is that right? Just 25.
25 registered voters from each county, so 25, and so.
Boy, that's something, isn't it? Isn't it great that we live in a country that anybody can sign up?
It's awesome. It is awesome. I tell you, I'm the grandson of a high school janitor. And so if he had witnessed me running for the Senate, that would have just blown his mind. He wouldn't have been able to. He couldn't even have comprehended that.
And he may be watching.
Absolutely.
You think that the dad can see us?
Hey, absolutely. And those in heaven, I guarantee you,
You think they're looking down on us?
looking down.
No proof, or you just that's your thoughts?
That's my belief. That's my belief. I just feel it, you just feel it.
I'm like you. I feel it. I tell you what. If you have a real good friend, I've noticed this. If you have a real good friend pass away, whatever you're dealing with that's difficult, it'll be solved just a few days after they die.
Right.
And you mark my word, if I'm not telling you the truth, that's the truth.
I'm going to absolutely. I'm going to really pay attention to that now.
It's incredible. It's incredible. It'll be something that they were aware that you were going through.
Right.
Something
Right.
that they, not just something off the cuff. Something they knew you were struggling with.
Sure.
I've never seen it fail.
It's almost like they intervene.
I think that they get some kind of wishes or something.
Yep, they just intercept.
It's
whatever
usually within 10 days.
Wow.
I mean, and there's no rhyme or reason. Oh, well,
Right.
they decided this or that. It was just, just going away.
Yeah. That's interesting. Very interesting.
Do you got any other hobbies?
I don't. I used to run a little bit and work out a little bit and still a little bit, but not as much as I used to. But that's about it.
Your son's a traveling nurse. I bet that'd be a good job.
He loves it.
I bet they pay them. Don't they pay them like $35 an hour, 40 an hour?
It's crazy money. He was, and there's so, they're like 1 million nurses short.
And the traveling, it's like I'm on vacation. I
He
guess.
is.
I mean, I'm sure they have to work when they get there,
And
but
he signs like a 13-week contract, and he's
not a 10-year.
not
contract.
a 10-year, and he makes great money. He makes great money, and then 13 weeks from there, and then he's somewhere else in another state.
Like Alaska or Hawaii or.
Yep. Normally, it's a place where no one wants to go, so you'll see him. He'll be in out in Arizona or in Ohio or
Did
Virginia.
you see? Did you ever watch Northern Exposure?
I did.
Boy, that was it.
Yeah.
Was he a traveling doctor? Or, no, he went to.
Was it Alaska or Lamont?
Yeah,
Something like that?
Alaska. Well, that was a great show. I loved that.
That was
show.
years ago, but I remember it.
Because they would send. He was a doctor, and they sent him to those rural areas that nobody wanted to go.
Right.
In lieu of his college things.
Exactly. Yep. And that's sort of how Zach does. He's he's got a great personality. And he loves people. He's got a lot of compassion for people, especially older people and terminally ill. And so it's really a calling for him. But he's done an amazing job. I'm very proud of him.
Are your parents still alive?
They are. They are.
Alive and well in Cleveland?
Well, they've got some health issues, but they're still alive and they're still here, and they live a very very fruitful life, and very, very proud of that. It's a blessing to have your parents here.
What was it? I saw you at Gondolier Friday. Was that Friday? Boy, they got the. They're so consistent, aren't they?
They are, and they have been forever.
They've been that way ever since I can remember.
And you know what you're getting when you go there. It's
What do you eat when you get
the
there?
lasagna and spaghetti. I love it all.
I always get the spaghetti. Sometimes I get the Gondolier sandwich and fries. They're getting a little bit short on the fries, so I've noticed.
Well, I've noticed that, but I hadn't complained because it's probably for my benefit.
Well, I'm thinking, and Friday it was all I wanted, so it was okay.
Well, that's right. That's right.
Well, these restaurants, they have a hard time getting help nowadays, don't they?
I see now they have an abbreviated schedule, and they just have trouble getting help. And if a young person really wanted a job, hey, he could listen.
Oh, he can mop up right now and say, hey, I'm on time and I want to be here. They'd say, man, I'll pay you $25.
Absolutely. If you just had the soft skills, you just showing up on
just
time,
showing up.
being polite, being energetic.
Comb your hair. Take the nose ring. Can you imagine a waitress with a nose ring? I mean,
that's how
earrings, okay.
That's how times have changed.
It's disgusting.
It's just a different world than what you and I grew up in. It is.
Don't they have a parent to say, hey, get that thing out of your nose when you're working at a restaurant?
Hey, my daddy.
If you want to wear that, go to Hobby Lobby or something.
Yeah, my daddy wouldn't let me leave the house without a belt on.
Oh yeah, stuff your shirt in.
Yeah,
Remember when you didn't tuck your shirt in?
Oh yeah, you was
Tuck
a
your
rubber,
shirt
yeah.
in.
Yeah,
My
you-
mother used to say, straighten your shoulders.
Yeah.
I had
yeah.
to stand against the wall to go like that. Sometimes I walk like that and people think I'm sticking my, no, it's just my mother telling me to
That's
stand
right.
up against the wall.
That's right. There's probably
Posture's so important now, isn't it?
I
Have
think
you
so.
noticed that?
I think so.
They don't have good posture.
No. I think just too much time, scrolling through social media or on the phone. I think that's what all hunched over, So
There is a distinct hunch about them.
yeah.
If somebody said, "Hey, get off the computer," all these other reasons, I'd say, "Hey, you're gonna have a hunchback."
That's right.
That's enough
That's
reason.
Right. Absolutely. You see a lot of people in the hair business that sort of hunched over a little bit and always wanted to get out before that happened,
How much are those chairs?
They range. The old barber chairs, like the ones I work out of, the Belmont 901s, they're probably, they quit making them, in the early 70s. So now they're probably about $1,500, from $800 to $1,500, depending on the shape, how good of a shape they're in. But of course, I wanted all of mine to match, and so I redone them all and recovered, broke them down, and so they didn't cost that much, but I got a lot of sweat equity in them, and they're all chrome. They used to have the porcelain base back in the 50s and 60s, and then in the 70s they started sort of gravitating to the chrome. And then they even had the porcelain arms back in the day, and but now it's sort of all upholstered and stuff. And barber chairs have really gotten cheap because they sort of flooded the market with these foreign barber chairs and stuff. And they're really not true barber chairs. They're not hand pumped. They're foot pumped. So it's just a different day. Just
Is yours hand pumped?
they're hand pumped.
So you have to get down and go.
They do. And my chairs are from 1969 to 1972. So they've got
They're vintage.
They're vintage. They're vintage.
Raymond cut hair on the vintage. He had like a 1942 one.
Oh, is that right?
Oh yeah, it was real vintage. And then when he laid you back to wash your hair, he had a picture on the ceiling that you could look at.
Oh yeah, yeah. I love hanging out with barbers. They're most of them are pretty. They're sort of artistic and they're sort of eccentric too.
Do you use that pomade? What do they call that?
Pomade.
The powder and stuff.
Yeah,
that smells like a barber's Clubman. Yeah,
Clubman talc.
I used to use that all the. You use that?
I still use it. It's been around for 150 years, and every once in a while they sort of gravitate away from that, but they always come back because
Where do they put that on? Just your face?
No, like your neck.
So that.
Like when I first started cutting hair, we shaved around the neck and ears with every haircut. And then before you to get the loose hair off of them, you'd hit them with the powder, with the talc, and it just had a real good clean smell, And I still use it, especially on like little kids, they always like the powder, and so they don't like to leave without smelling good.
I used to use it as deodorant.
Oh yeah, yep.
Like that till I heard about that kidney disease or something, something crazy like that. And I thought,
yeah,
but I hadn't done it since. But you remember when on Andy Griffith, Floyd the barber? I bet you like that, didn't you? Watching that.
I've got an autographed picture of Floyd and Andy, in my shop. But yeah, Floyd. Remember Floyd? He. He'd always talk about the two-chair shop up in Mount Holly. I mean, you have to love it. The
two-chair. Remember when he had the genie come in and did the nails?
Yes.
She was the I Love Jeannie.
Yeah. And then there was one episode where he had gotten Barney's sideburns uneven, and Barney was constantly in the mirror.
Yeah.
Hey, looking back and forth, and Andy would come into the jail, and Barney would be asking everybody.
Yeah. And Andy wasn't Andy telling him that they were crooked? Just
right.
Remember when they got Barney went through the cold case files and found where Floyd had hit. They had some kind of a dispute where Floyd had hit one of the other guys, and so he wanted to reopen the case.
Right,
and then he got it started all over again.
Right. Or the time that Barney, he like arrested, Andy was out of
Everybody,
town.
yeah.
He arrested everybody in town or something.
Opie and
yeah.
Aunt Bee.
Right. I love that show.
Boy, that was funny, wasn't it?
It was one of those shows that when you got through watching it, it just made you feel good.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, it just made you feel good.
There's not many shows about barbers other than that scene there, is there?
You don't, you know, and when I started cutting hair, you know, being a barber, you know, this is like when the big hair bands were in, you know, and
Yeah, like Motley Crue
Motley Crue and Poison and Def Leppard and
White Snake.
White Snake. So, you know, being a barber was like one of the most uncoolest things you could do, you know. But now, you know, it tends to be very trendy, you know. You see a lot of...
Yeah, it was not a cool thing to do in 85,
They
was
thought
it?
you had to be like 70 years old. And people had thought I lost my mind when I went to barber school. And I went to the barber school, to the only barber school left in the state that was still open. So
Was there a lot of people in the class?
it was, I think, about 30, you know.
What's the thing that goes around? What's
The-
that?
the barber pole?
Yeah, what's that significant?
You know, at
about?
one time, the dentists, doctors, and barbers all were one profession.
The same guy?
They were the same guy, all governed under one, they were all one profession. And so each color represents, it used to be, now it's red, white, and blue. It used to be red, white, and black. And, but over the years, it sort of gravitated to blue.
So that meant, so they're saying this shop does dentistry, hair, and what else?
Yeah, physicians.
And
yeah, that would be, yeah.
So that was the 3 stripes.
Yep, that was the...
We do all.
We-
Could you have one that only had 2 stripes and they only did the 2 things?
Probably, but I think in the late 1800s, I think with the doctors and dentists, when they sort of ventured out on their own, and then the barber, they got the money and we got the barber pole, you know, and so I think there's one barber pole company left in the whole U.S. It's Marby Barber Pole Company.
God, one barber pole.
And they still have every part of every barber pole they've ever made.
Is that right?
And you can order anything. As a matter of fact, you can build a whole new barber pole from just from the parts, but very expensive, very expensive.
So that was to advertise if you were going to the town.
That's right.
That we have, we'll take your tooth out, cut your hair, or, you know, I think the
Right.
Three Stooges had a scene where they were cutting their hair and pulling their teeth.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. And one of them was going to try to put the toupee on with a nail and a hammer.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah, it was funny. You know?
And the Little Rascals, boy, they were funny.
Oh, yeah.
Did you ever watch Amos and Andy?
I did.
That was the
That
funniest.
was good.
That was the funniest.
That was
If you
good.
think the Three Stooges or Andy Griffith are funny, you hadn't seen Amos and
We
Andy.
would just
That's
laugh.
the funniest.
Yeah, it was just good. It
That's
was good.
funnier than Big Bang Theory.
That's right. Good, clean humor there. You know, we love
Big
it.
Bang Theory's funny.
Oh yeah, yeah. Been a while since I've seen
Seinfeld's funny.
Seinfeld is
Yeah.
hilarious.
But Amos and Andy's the funniest.
Yeah. I love that show.
What do you anticipate as far as you're just going to keep cutting hair and looking to serve in public office as things unfold?
I think so. I think so. You know, I got a good crew in place there at the shop, and they, you know, they're very loyal and they do a great job. So I'll keep them in place and just support them in any way that I possibly can. And then eventually I'll, in probably a couple of years, I anticipate running for another office.
You know, that's the job, just keeping those people going and keeping the,
Yeah.
plumbing leak,
That's right.
a sink broke,
That's right.
whatever.
And I try to do it all myself, so I wear a lot of hats.
Do you always have to show somebody their hair in the back with a mirror? Is that, you have to do that, or you ever forget?
Well, hopefully, you know, if you've cut their hair over years,
Yeah.
you know, they don't even ask for that. But if
Yeah.
they do, you certainly, or if there's any question about the neckline that you want to sort of show them what they have, and then if there's any adjustments that need to be made, they can sort of instruct you to make some adjustments if you needed to.
Is the mullet out?
You know, the mullet used to be out, but I feel the mullet's coming back.
I always liked the mullet.
Me too. I
It
wish
had
I
a good reason.
If I had hair like Billy Ray Cyrus, I would
have
wear
a
the mullet.
mullet.
I would too. I'd wear the mullet proudly, by the way.
Yeah. Who else was it that had a mullet?
Let me see here.
That was after the big bands, the
Yeah.
big, what were they called? The hair band, big hair bands.
I don't know.
Well, they really teased their hair and everything.
They
didn't
did. They
Permanent,
did.
permanent. So you don't know of any cure for hair loss that you know of?
You know, I really don't. You know, it's hair is fed on blood supply and circulation, so I wish I did.
If you did, would you get hair or would you just keep going like
I
this?
probably would just keep doing exactly what I'm doing right now. It's really, I've been bald for so long, I would probably look funny with hair.
Do you ever seen those balls that people roll over their hair? Do they work better than just a razor?
I've seen some of those. You know, I like a little more control of the
Yeah.
razor than just raking it over
I'd
my
hate to
head.
cut a cancer off by accident.
Right. So I use like a Mach 3 or something, and just keep the skin tight. And I've never had a problem with cutting myself.
How often do you go through razors?
Well, I shave my head every day. So normally, 8 or 9, 10 days, you can tell it's starting to drag a little bit.
That's expensive. The razors
It can be expensive.
aren't
It is.
they?
It sure can be.
So if you don't do it every day, do you start getting some hair? Remember that Seinfeld episode when she's the guy, she said, "Oh, you have hair," and she wanted him to grow it, and he found out it was bald. He didn't know it.
I remember that. Yeah, if I don't shave it every day, it does tend to grow, and if I go a week or something, it really looks awful.
Do you ever do that?
I do. Like when I'm on vacation,
Yeah.
I just don't shave,
Yeah.
just don't get a haircut,
Yeah.
and it looks awful. It looks awful.
So you recommend the everyday when you?
I think every day is the way to go. Or if you're not working with the public, maybe you could do it, every a couple times a week or something like that. But
What kind of shaving cream do you use?
I use now they have so many different kinds. I just use like a regular kind of like a soft soap. Because I want something that they have some that have mink oil in it, things like that. It sort of
What
gives
about I use electric razor oil. Mm-hmm. Does that work the same?
It does. It does. Even Edge and some of these other ones, they're, but I normally just use like a soap, like a little soft soap,
What do you mean soft soap?
like just in like a little hand soap in a bottle.
You mean just like
just like, and then
like a doll?
like Dial. And
Anything?
Anything, and then like just go over my head with it and just let it sit there a little bit. Or if I'm in the shower, then sometimes I'll shave in the shower, and just letting the soap on, sort of
Soften it up,
the hair follicle or the hair shaft, and then I shave, and very simple.
You use regular soap on your face, or use that? Use regular soap?
I use regular soap. Mm-hmm.
I had a guy tell me that had real nice skin. He uses that Purpose soap. It has no additives or nothing.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you use regular soap.
I just use regular soap. Mm-hmm. Regular soap.
So anything else? You don't want to give your address out. You got enough business as it is.
Well,
Right?
I always want more business. I always want more business. And
What is your address?
2504 Henderson,
The real nice brick building.
just right off of 25th Street, right behind the old Grease Monkey oil. Now it's called Valvoline. Mm-hmm. And come see us. We'd love to have you. Love to have you.
Hey, I appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
I really
Dave.
do.
Appreciate it. Yes, sir. It's a pleasure.